So with me tonight is one of my residents, and he's going to be giving half the presentation. Hi to Nick and Jeremy. Nice to see you guys. So I'm coming to you from Queen's University in beautiful Kingston, Ontario. And I'm going to describe the program that we run here in Kingston. So our program training sites are within the hospital or within the city. We have two hospitals. They're about 500 meters apart, and it's a beautiful 17-minute walk through a park to get between both of them. I use a scooter, so I'm back and forth in about 5 minutes. You are going to have to take a couple of community rotations in some of our regional health partners, but the university does provide housing in those other areas. So our orthopedic services are broken up into 4 services. The first is the sports and upper extremity service with myself and Dr. Campbell, and then we have 3 other upper extremity and hand surgeons as well. The second is our arthroplasty service. We do have 3 current arthroplasty surgeons, and we've just had a retirement that is going to be replaced in the near future, and our foot and ankle surgeon on top of that. So there are 5 surgeons in that service. Finally, we have a pediatric and spine service with 2 pediatric surgeons and 3 spine surgeons here in Kingston. So that's a total of 8 surgeons, 15 surgeons, 14 right now. Our D service is really headed by Jeff Yaw, who we like to view as Darth Vader, but he's not alone. The adult surgeons do staff the trauma service a week at a time, and obviously our pediatric surgeons utilize that service for pediatric trauma as well. So what makes us a little bit unique is they're a bit of a smaller program, like some of the other smaller programs. We like to think of ourselves as learner-centered. There are earlier levels of responsibility placed on you because we don't have as many training programs. There's a 1-to-1 teaching ratio. There are 15 staff, 14 right now, and 15 residents. So we really rarely double up or see another resident with 2 residents together. And you do get quite a bit of opportunity to be the primary surgeon with us. Second thing that makes us a little bit different than some of our other programs or across the country is that we believe in a spiral approach of learning. This is an iterative approach, meaning you're going to be in every single year, you get exposed to every service. So you get to see every subspecialty every year. We feel this helps people learn a little bit each year and build upon what you saw the year before. It also helps bring familiarity to you with the staff and to the staff with you. And it allows repetitive practice of surgical skills in every subspecialty area. And within each rotation, we call it directed learning. I set the rotations, but the residents actually set where they go on a daily, weekly basis. And if they decide that they need a little bit more upper extremity training rather than sports training, they can make that happen for themselves, amongst themselves. So this is kind of an overall view of the 5 years. This is similar, I'm sure, to most programs. I'm going to point out some of the features that we are quite proud of. Every program does a boot camp now. This is a foundations boot camp where every resident in the surgical specialties goes through that. We view ourselves still as a bit of a renaissance program in which we are still doing quite a few off-service rotations. Some people like it, some people don't, but we feel that there's lots to be learned in these other services. More importantly, when you're on that service, we don't have a neurosurgical training program, nor do we have a plastics training program, nor a vascular training program. So you are the primary and, in most cases, the only resident on that program at that time. So you get to do quite a bit more than you would elsewhere. Finally, this is just to demonstrate that you do actually get a rotation in every service every year. And we give a lighter clinics block where you're not in the OR much, you're doing clinics, and you're doing clinics not only in orthopedics, but also doing physio clinics, OT clinics, an amputation clinic. So related specialties that we work with and our allied healthcare partners in musculoskeletal medicine. And during that time, you don't have any call to prepare for your foundations exam. We do run an orthopedic boot camp. In fact, I'm in the middle of that right now. I just did my arthroscopy day yesterday. So it's a full week for junior residents to learn the basics of sport or of orthopedics. We allow for 3 electives in your program. They don't have to happen in this location. They can happen anywhere, but and they can be anywhere. You do not have to do them in Kingston. You don't have to do them in Canada. You can do them anywhere you want, so long as they're in orthopedics and not in surfing. And finally, like most programs, we give a block of consolidation time. This is where the Royal College exam is going to be. So we're going to give a block just before it for people to study for their exam. Finally, the transition of practice time is time to become proficient, where you're going to be provided as a junior attending staff level of responsibility to prepare you for your final exam. And that's going to earn you your orthopedic medal. So I think at this point, I'm going to let Sean take over.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Bardana. I think it's probably easiest if you just advance the slides, just that way I don't have to share my screen as well. So boot camp. Hey, everyone, I'm Sean. I'm a PGY2 here at Queen's. Bardana asked me to join just to kind of give you the resident side of things, because we are a very resident-driven program, and he felt it was most appropriate that I give at least half the talk. So what we're in right now, in the middle of right now, is boot camp. So as Bardana mentioned, it's open to the junior residents, mandatory for the R2s, but optional for the R1s. And we go over all the basics of orthopedics that you need to survive on night float, which we'll get to in a second. But the idea is that brings everyone kind of up to speed and how to handle any of the orthopedic emergencies and basic arthroplasty and arthroscopy, as well as basic and complex fractures that you'll see on call. You can go to the next slide, Dr. B. We also have an anatomy boot camp, which is great. It's cadaveric dissection that we do for the first 2 months of the year. It's basically a 4-hour block where we review core concepts of anatomy with a heavy focus on Royal College question prep. And then we move to the cadaver lab, where we, practice our approaches. And as I'm sure you'll all get to know and love, we go through Hoppenfeld's essentially front to back in that boot camp. Next slide. Every week we have a half day. So we also have trauma rounds. So there's usually trauma rounds on Monday, which is an hour with Dr. Yaw and Dr. Kassam. And it's resident-led, present cases, walk through your approach. It's great for the R5s, getting them up to speed for the Royal College, but also for the more junior members of the team, so they get to actually practice how to approach different trauma fractures. We have our true half day on Thursday. So that's covering the breadth of orthopedic topics, anything and everything from spine to peds to upper extremity. It's protected time. No pagers allowed, and Dr. Bardana is very strict about that. So it's great. It's a great chance and opportunity for us to learn. We will also have sim days spread out through the year. Generally, these are incorporated into our academic full days, as well as journal clubs, which are hosted at a staff house. This it's still starting up, post-COVID. Kind of getting everyone who's comfortable hosting a large group of residents. We always have to be mindful, especially when it gets to cold and flu season, that we don't take out an entire ortho residency program with one COVID super spreader event. Next slide. We have something that's fairly unique at Queen's. I'm not sure if other programs do it, but I'm fairly certain that we're one of the only ones. We use a night float call system. So what that means is in your first 2 years, you start night float in PGY2, meaning in first year you have no responsibility for night float, and night float is basically from Sunday evening until Friday morning. During the evenings, there is one resident responsible for all consults and all ORs that go on at night. It runs from 5 to 7 a.m. and then the day team takes over. You get Friday through Sunday morning off, and then you start it over again. And this is usually one block at a time. It sounds daunting, and it can be a very challenging month, but the benefit is that we don't actually need to take 24-hour call during the weekday. So it's fantastic in terms of, making it to your ORs when you're scheduled for them. You don't have to worry about ignoring a post-call day or missing something important because you're post-call. It's a great opportunity for you to develop independence too, especially as a junior resident. It's a real chance for you to essentially run the orthopedic service at night. And again, although can be daunting at first, I think people grow to love the 11 months of freedom they get by not having to do 24-hour call 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 like some other like sometimes you have to do in other programs. Next slide, Dr. B. Oh, and one more thing. On the weekend, it's a regular 24-hour call shift. So like I said, the night float gets that time off, and then it's the weekend, the usual day team will split up the 24-hour call shifts over the weekend. All right, next slide. So like I've mentioned, like Dr. Bourdain has mentioned, we're heavily focused on our residents. So we give a pretty equal opportunity to all our residents to start being the primary surgeon in orthopedic cases from PGY2. I was lucky enough to get some opportunities in PGY1 doing knee arthroplasties and other basic fractures. Really, it comes down to what kind of learner are you. If you're the kind of learner that doesn't want to hide, wants to be pushed into the spotlight, wants to be challenged, Queens is a great place for you. There is no hiding either your flaws or your successes from your staff, and they will notice that. And if there is something you're doing wrong, you will get correction and encouragement in order to get better at it. But at the same time, you're not working with a different staff in the days every day. Sometimes you're working with the same staff for a week at a time. So you make a mistake in the first OR day, you better have that covered by the next OR day. We also are heavy on resident feedback, and Dr. Bourdain and the rest of the staff are excellent at incorporating it. We just got a resident retreat renewed for the second year because of our feedback and because of our advocacy. We've also had snacks now bought by the staff, which is excellent for when you're on call and you get a little peckish and you just know that Tim Hortons bagel can't satisfy you. And then finally, we also do a lot of off-service rotations in first year, but the excellent part is that like Bourdain mentioned, there aren't any senior residents on those rotations. So in vascular, in plastics, and in neurosurgery, I was the first assist for, I think, every case. It's really fun. And again, if you're the type of person who brings the right attitude, comes prepared, they'll let you operate, which is excellent. Kingston itself is an incredible city. I did my medical school here, so I had a bit of exposure to it before, but I used to live in Vancouver. I also studied in Montreal. So I've been around the block, so to speak, and I can comfortably say Kingston is an incredible town, an incredible city. I think the 3 big things that stand out to me are its livelihood, despite what people think. People think of Kingston as a very sleepy town, but there's tons to do. There's tons of nightlife. There's always something going on. It's a really close community, so you get to know people really quickly. Everyone in the hospital kind of has an understanding of who everyone is. You're not just a small cog in this big machine. You get to know people really well. And honestly, for me, like a big part of my life is being outdoors and being outside. And for Kingston is just an incredibly walkable and bikeable city. I live, 2 minutes by bike from the hospital, and I'm not paying an arm and a leg at all. So if you enjoy being able to walk to work, to walk to the store, walk to the bars, it's an incredible place to be. We also are a very tight program. We are supported and cared for by our other residents on our team. I remember when I started orthopedics, I was a little nervous because, I didn't know anyone. Even though I was in Kingston, most of my friends had matched to other places because they weren't from Kingston, which is I guess the classic issue with the Queen students, looking at all of you who are in the chat today. But everyone welcomed me in with open arms. I'm a huge fan of all my co-residents, and I think that's really important for when you're trying to pick your residency program. Make sure that you feel like you mesh well with those residents, because you will spend most of your time over the next 5 years with those people. We're, like I mentioned, it's an incredible place to get outdoors. We're cottage country central here. I think half of these photos are from Bardana's cottage, which we go to at least once a year to go and we say water ski, but Bardana is actually just trying to torture us. And there's if you're into wind sports, there's golfing, hiking, fishing. But overall, I think that you can't go wrong with Queens. My email inbox is always open. I'm sure Caden will share mine and Bardana's email with everyone. Shoot us a message if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.